Greetings this evening of your time as you create time to exist. How are you? Oh, thank you. Allow me to begin this interaction with the entitlement. The referential, preferential you. Now we have discussed many times the concept of your imagination as being one of your primary facilities or tools that enable you, in that sense, to create the life that you wish, to lay down the template, to lay down the model, to lay down the mold, if you will, that will enable you to begin to build that life, to be that very life. And many of you in attending these interactions and participating or listening to these sessions on what you call your tape format have perhaps on some level understood what we have said, have perhaps on some level seen, shall we say, the usefulness of this idea. But we do find that for many of you, it remains just that, a concept, just that, a notion that perhaps would be nice if it were only true. Therefore, this evening of your time, we will participate with you, each and every one of you, in the formation of each and every one of your versions of that referential, preferential you. Now again, we remind you that your imagination in your society is generally used as a generator of fantasy, many times in the form of an escape, many times in the form of a preference that you truly feel will never happen. But that is only one side of that coin. That is only one side of the imagination. When, in that sense, you view the imagination as a tool, you then get use from that tool that is very, very specific, very, very individual, very, very tailored, if you will. Therefore, once you have created the notion of the referential, preferential you, or perhaps you can say the you that if you had your druthers, you would be. In that imagination, and together we will form the mold. Together we will form the birth of this you, and then perhaps describe some of the other applications for it once having done so. So therefore, in your own timing, become comfortable in your seats. Now understand that what you are about to create, and perhaps for many of you recreate, will be something that will, shall we say, stick around with you. Being that it is your creation, no one can take it from you. And being that it is your direct extension, expression, you will never in that sense need anyone else in order to call it forth. So it is in that sense, by its very creation, by its very identification from you, a tool of empowerment that once you have, you can never lose, and again need no one else in order to express it. It is part and parcel of you. Therefore, in order to, again, create a conducive atmosphere for the creation of this referential, preferential you, and at the same time, unify and unitize and, shall we say, align all individuals present, if you will, for me now, in unison, take 3 deep and loving breaths. And understand that as you breathe together, co-inspire, conspire, an alignment takes place. But that alignment also exists within each and every one of you. So now as you do relax, as you do settle in to yourself, blank the screen of your imagination and allow yourself to perceive what you may be called the black behind your closed eyes. Now, before we proceed, understand that there is no way to do this incorrectly. And in fact, your imagination, being that that's the screen that you are looking at right now, will assist you. Trust that that assistance is part of the very tool that we are speaking of. And allow whatever embellishments occur from your imagination to be the exact embellishments that make it that much more relevant to you. Now we will begin by allowing to emerge from this blackness, again at whatever pace is natural and comfortable for you, the outline of your body, emerging from the blackness. If there is something that you would physically like to alter about your body, allow that outline in that sense to represent any changes. If you feel you're a bit too thin, then in that sense, picture it being a bit more robust and vice versa. In any way, have this outline be the you prefer to be, but do not remove it from yourself. Still understand that you are seeing you. As you do begin to perceive against the background of the blackness, the outline figure, allow it to be slightly backlit by a blue-white light, so it stands out that much more. And you can see the difference between perhaps the blackness within the outline and the background by that demarcation line of blue-white light. Now, again, allow what you would call the features, the color, the topography of, perhaps for now, the front of the body to begin to crystallize and see the you that you say you prefer to be. For some individuals, this will look exactly like the you already are. That is just fine. If it does not, that is just fine as well. But again, do not lose the identification that what you are seeing, particularly if it differs a bit from what you see in your mirror, is you. Starting at what you would call the top of your head and scanning very slowly downward, allow the details, allow the fine print, so to speak, to crystallize and see a bit at a time from perhaps now the top of your head, what you would call your hair. See that hair. How does it look? How is it hanging, as you say? Being that this is a bit foreign to us. Allow yourself to slowly now scan down to what you call your forehead and eye region and begin to very clearly and discreetly, in whatever way that is presented from your imagination, allow that to crystallize and become more solid, more clear. As you do so, allow this to wash downward, to complete the nose, to complete the mouth, and the outline of the chin, as you say. See your face, the face of the you say you wish to be. Allow now, once again, that scanning to continue downward and allow the outline of what you call your neck to take on more substance. See the lines, see the musculature within that neck, still maintaining a focus on the face. As you now have head and neck, to whatever degree you have allowed yourself to create it, now proceed downward and see the outline of your shoulders. See the outline of where your hands or arms, upper arms, join to the trunk of your body. Continue downward and allow yourself to see what you call your chest, your rib cage area, your abdominal umbilical area. Notice the nuances. Notice the details. Notice the similarities from who you now create yourself to be. And as well, if there are any, notice the differences. We will mention before proceeding that what we are suggesting for you to be creating in your imagination is the you that you prefer to be, not the you that everyone else says you should be. The you that you feel comfortable being, that you know is right for you. Do not allow anyone else's opinion for now to enter into it. It is your projection of who you feel you comfortably are, not who everyone else says you should be. Continue down now to what you call your pelvic area and allow yourself to begin to see, taking form, taking shape, the contours of your upper legs, your knees, your lower legs, your feet. Now, as you say, pan back and begin by taking a few steps back from the point of view that you are to see the whole self, the entire body, head, middle, legs, feet. See it standing there in relief against the black background again, backlit by a blue-white hue of light. Picture, if you will, a road. It can be any road you wish. If there is a specific road, fine. If it is simply blacktop, fine. Picture now this you being placed upon this road, walking. This is now the you again. You say you prefer to be. So begin to now look at how that you is walking, how that you is standing, how that you holds up or down or whatever your head. See how your shoulders are held. See the language that your body exudes as it walks down the road. Confident, assured, in ecstatic joy for simply being, for simply existing, for simply living the result of the choice of your soul to create this life. See that you enjoy simply walking and notice the nuances. As you do, notice again the similarities to the way that you walk, but also pay particular attention to the differences. The differences in, again, the way the head is held, the way the shoulders are held, the way the arms swing, the message, the language that the body puts out. Note what is different about what this imagination is providing you in this reference point, in this referential preferential you. And again, make note of them, the differences. Now, imagine that you, walking on this road, is coming up to 3 other individuals having a conversation. It matters not what they are saying, but in that sense, you may see that 2 of them seem in that sense to be somewhat serene, and 1 in that sense is somewhat argumentative. Allowing that preferential you to again walk up to this interaction with the 3 other individuals. Allow yourself to see how you are participating in that interaction. How the referential preferential you holds and maintains in conviction that posture and is not in that sense strayed away from the center. That you holds again itself in a particular way when facing the serene individuals, but also when facing the argumentative individual, and pay particular attention to how that you, in whatever the specifics of the situation that you are creating, handles that situation. Now, this is the you always have said you preferred to be. So I assume that you would be doing the things you say you wish you would do. So allow your imagination to provide the specific stance and again, body language that accompanies this idea. And see this you. Feel the admiration for that approach. For that approach is representative of who you choose to be. Picture that you now continuing down the road. As you do on what you call your right side, you will notice a calm, peaceful, serene, and perhaps colorful scenery. On your left, notice what you call warfare. Now, the you that you truly prefer to be will in that sense perhaps have a similar posture when looking to the right and looking to the left. Therefore, analyze as clearly as your imagination is providing your particular reactions from the preferred point of view of that you, and pay particular attention to the differences in how that you handles and interprets the situation. Allow that you to now face the serene side of the road, having again the more tumultuous side to the back. And in perceiving that beauty, in perceiving that perfection, in perceiving that particular expression and manifestation of your nature, allow the feelings that you would have to come to the surface and feel the feeling of fitting in, feel the feeling of harmony, feel the feeling of unconditional love and acceptance for the scenario that you have chosen to, in that sense, exist within for the time being. When you truly feel what I am sharing, allow yourself to now turn 180 degrees, putting the serene scene in the back, and now seeing what you would call any version of what you call warfare and tumultuousness upon your planet. But notice the following. This preferential you, this reference point, still feels that same joy, still feels that same unconditional love, still feels that same connection. However, perhaps is expressing it from the viewpoint, well, that's their story. Not invalidating it, understanding that that fits as well, but it is not representative of the you say you prefer to be. But at the same time, you can understand that it serves a function for perhaps other individuals who are still exploring separation, limitation, and negativity. And they too have the right and reason to explore. But notice the lack of effect from that scenario. And in fact, the maintenance of the centered self, understanding that the serenity surrounds you as well from the back. Allow that you to once again turn facing the front of the road as we have defined and begin once again to walk. Perhaps again now into a fog, whereby there is no longer a discernible difference between one side and the other. As you walk, you come upon a chair. Allow yourself to sit in this chair. Again, with a permeation of fog around you. As you feel yourself sitting in this chair, as you see that you sitting in that chair, become that you in the chair. Now take your point of view and perhaps sit on the lap of that referential preferential you, but you will notice that you sink into that you and merge with that you. Allow your viewpoint to shift now from viewing that you to again sitting in the seat of that you and viewing from that you. Understand the following. You are that you. All in that sense that you would need to represent this is simply to just decide that you are already that you. Just decide. A conscious act. The decision to become. Now that you are creating this notion within your imagination, understand that in order to do so, in order to even conjure up these pictures, you must, in the moment that you are doing so, become the idea itself. Otherwise, you would not have the ability to bring it forth. You are this you. By the mere feeling and conjuring of this you and experience of this you, you are that very you. Just decide that this is so for you. Now, in order to maintain this posture and point of view, once you have decided to change as you have, there are merely but two more steps left. Step number 2, one being just decide, is to trust that you have changed. assume the attitude and expectations of the you that has changed, not the you that wishes to change, that is looking for the evidence of why you have not, and accepting evidence that you have not. The you that is that you would accept no evidence. The accepting of the evidence that it is not that you is the old belief system. The trust in the new you is the creation of the new belief system that now looks from that point of view, that now acts as that you acts. And in fact, that is step 3. To act as though you trust that you have changed. That means when something comes along, which would seem on the surface to say, you have not changed, understand that when you even interpret, I have not changed, that is not the new you trusting in the change. That is the old you seeing whether you really believe in the change. But you can simply reacclimate, reorient your consciousness to simply decide to trust in the change. Allow yourself now to understand that the chair in which you sit is the chair that you are sitting on in this room. And as the fog dissipates around you, begin now to allow yourself to reacclimate to this room, for you have sat in the very chairs that you are in. Again, at your own pace, when reacclimating to your surroundings, you may open your eyes. Now, once again, understand. You have changed because you are a conscious creator and have simply chosen to change. The expression of your belief that you have changed is your willingness to trust in the change and act from the perspective of the changed self. You have created a model. You have created a mold or a template. What we again sometimes call the referential, since you can refer to it anytime. Preferential, since you prefer it. You. And it can come in quite handy in your daily life as well. Now that you have given it the substance. Now that you have called it forth. And very simply, if a situation comes along, it may not, but if it does, whereby you feel on some level that your initial reaction is that a reaction to a situation rather than a conscious action. Simply, first of all, note that you are perhaps thinking about proceeding by unpreferred, shall we say, perspective. See that perhaps you are about to do something that is not representative of who you say you wish to be. Then, in whatever way is possible under the circumstances, call forth the referential preferential you. It now again has substance. It now again has mass. Hand the situation over to that you, the you that was standing in that particular way, the you that was holding themselves in that particular way, the you that when interacting with other individuals maintain that resolve, maintain that joy, the you that when moving through the polarity of your particular physical reality, negative and positive, simply chooses the positive. Acknowledges the existence of the negative polarity because that is one of the definitions of the reality, but chooses the positive. Hand that situation over that you were about in that sense to perform that was not according to your preference to the referential preferential you, and see with the specifics of whatever the situation is what that you does. Very, very simple. When you do so, that you will surprise you very many times. Just as perhaps as we perform this particular set of actions, perhaps there were some nuances about that you had not anticipated. That is what your imagination contains as a tool. The ability to bring forth these specifics and apply them to a specific situation. With this tool, you no longer need anyone else's help. Now, this does not mean you cannot share, and this does not mean that from time to time you will, in that sense, enlist the assistance of other individuals. But you now have within you everything you need to proceed in any given situation if you will call forth and embody and empower that preferred you. At first, it may seem as a process. At first, it may seem that, well, my initial tendency is still the old approach. But the more times that you, rather than acting from the old perspective, call forth the referential preferential you and hand that over, the more times you will give yourself the opportunity to see that there is always a positive choice. And it is always within you, obtainable by you at any time. If when you hand the situation over to that referential preferential you and see what that you does, if you then do that, you will get the result of being that you. And the more you are willing to do so and only allow your life to be that consciously performed, the more that the process will dissolve in terms of seeming like a process. You will begin to automatically simply invoke and embody that you without the seeming one step of removal. So therefore, this tool, if it does initially seem like a process, only does so because that is where you are now willing to insert a pause before you act according to non-preference. That pause, that willingness before acting when you have a negative perspective is all that is necessary to completely transform the face of your life. For it does not take very many positive actions in a row that then yield positive results to build up enough of a positive momentum to seem to overwhelm the quote-unquote old, non-preferred negative momentum. For it again, it is not a matter of walking or running from the negative self. But by walking toward the positive self, there is automatically a distance from the negative experiential self. You will still be aware of negativity while you are on this reality. But that reality, in terms of the experience of the negativity, will be through someone else. That's their story. My story is the positive alternative to their story, which I validate, which is a reality, which has the right, but is not my choice. I do not criticize it. I do not judge the other realities. I simply embody my own reality as an alternative, as a statement to the universe, as a statement to myself, as a statement to those around me, that this is possible. For it is. This is how we live, and not because it is us, but from our perspective, we find this most joyful and wish to share it with you. For your ability to participate in this style of interchange proves beyond the shadow of a doubt, at least to us, that you are eminently capable of what we are sharing. Therefore, if you wish, you can put this tool back in the closet to gather dust, but you can as well call it forth any time. But you will find, if you are willing to do so, you will no longer, after a period of timing, call it forth. You will simply embody it. It will be you. And as you look into your mirror, after embodying these ideas of yourself, you will begin to see something very curious occurring. You will begin to see the physical you changing, and will, in that sense, allow that change to whatever degree you will allow it. Will see an alteration in your physical self. This alteration, for the purposes of what I am sharing, may on the surface seem to be merely appearance, but it is far more than that. It is a literal redefining and reassigning of the value of your genetic self as well. and therefore part and parcel of the transformative effect on your very genetic core as well. For your body is a reflection of your consciousness. And if you go along with the same sort of consciousness, your body maintains the same presentation. But when you alter that consciousness, specifically if you do so drastically and across the board, there cannot be any other effect than that body, which is a reflection, which is a representation, to fall in step, to begin to embody the ideas that you now are. You need not, in that sense, do so with what you call anxiety. And in that sense, your willingness to be who you say you wish to be will simply automatically result in this, but in its own timing. Notice the changes when they occur. When they do not, simply move on. There will be periods that it may seem to be more accelerated and other periods where it will be less accelerated. But this process can literally entirely redefine your physical body anywhere from 3 of your days to 3 of your years. It is up to you. And in that sense, if you do not place a pressure upon yourself and allow the presentation of the preferred you cannot force it, then things will perhaps happen a bit more quickly. But if you obsess with anxiety, you may slow down your own process. The alteration of the physical body in and of itself is not really the point. It is an effect. It is a result in the changing of the consciousness. And this will, if you are willing to do this, take the form that perhaps up till now will seem drastic to your society. Well, it's not possible, many may say, but you will show them that not only is it possible, but here I am. Therefore, in exchange for your willingness to redefine yourself or perhaps restate yourself if you're already happy with how you are, I thank you. And as well, understand that one of the only universal constants is change itself. Therefore, that is automatic, and you need not force anything to change. Perhaps the forcing has the effect of making things seem to stay the same. But your willingness to simply allow and relax and release your reality will then allow that reality to conform through the natural mechanism of change, which again is constant. Nothing need be forced. And if you find yourself forcing, close your eyes, conjure up that you. I assume that you would not force, and will show you an alternative viewpoint, an alternative posture, an alternative point of view that will then give you one more choice, which if you choose will be the result of being that preferred you. Each time you mimic the referential preferential you, you are being the referential preferential you. And then simply you will drop the designation referential and simply be the preferential you. Perhaps then a reference point for others who may wish such change. In exchange for that willingness, I ask you now, how may I be of service to you? Shutting over there.
I have just finished reading a very exciting book called The Visitors from Within, in which Bashar has a preface at the very beginning. And they're talking a lot about the Zeta Reticuli.
Yes.
And they're talking, is my understanding of one of the things that they're saying about these beings is that they are coming here to teach us about fear, and we are to teach them about emotions. Do I understand that?
Well, in a sense, that will be the result, but do proceed.
Do I understand that they have no emotions at all, that they have been completely bred out, and that by breeding with us, I mean, one of the things that excited me was they said that some of us females, they need us to go aboard their ships to rock their babies and to nurture them, to show their females how to do this because they can't feel the emotions anymore. And in return, they're going to teach us about fear. And my question to you is, in teaching us about fear, is it reflecting back to us the fear from within, thus the title, The Visitors from Within?
Yes, exactly. For they can only reflect back to you what you already contain. Perhaps you can say, many years ago, they contained no emotionality. Perhaps contemporary to you right here, right now in this room, which to me is quite arbitrary, by the way, you will find that there is the beginnings, the stirrings of these emotional natures within these beings now. They are, in that sense, beginning, in some sense, to derive the advantage in interacting with your society. It is not necessarily that they came along with the conscious intention, we will scare the heebie-jeebies out of them so they can learn. But understand that one of the byproducts of those interactions is the fear coming up in an individual of the unknown, of the uncertain, of the alien, perhaps hidden portions of the self. That is what is represented. That is what is brought to the surface. But then by an individual creating that degree of fear, many individuals will simply, in that sense, choose to continue to create it. But many will begin to look at, again, the beliefs, which always result in the emotions that are behind that fear. And many, again, individuals will come to find that they feel powerless in the situation and believe it is happening to them. When they present the alternative viewpoint that, well, obviously, since everything's happening from me, this is not the only one exception. I must have made some agreement to be in this situation. I will now see what the agreement is and why I have made it. That is a different attitude toward then reapproaching those interactions. So the individuals that go through, in that sense, that set or line or train of thought, in that sense, begin to integrate that very fear. And that is the benefit, perhaps you can say, to you as a civilization.
It was very interesting to me. One of the things that I had read about in the book, they talked about going over the prisons and using a blue beam to take some of the prisoners out, because that's a very good situation where people are in extreme fear, and they wanted to take genetic samples of the prisoners or something to understand about the fear.
Well, to some degree, this may occur.
All right, while I was reading this, nobody else in my family is as into this as I am, but my younger daughter was, at the same time, that same week that I finished the book, she told me that she had a dream of being in our house and looking out the window and seeing this blue beam come through the window, which then turned to red and back to blue, at which point she went close to the window and looked out and saw this big spaceship with black square windows, was gray with lights all around it. Could you comment on that at all?
Well, again, to some degree, it has to do with the reticulum connection that we have discussed and the awakenings or stirrings within her that perhaps maybe she does on some level believe this more than she is admitting. Are you barring her from something?
Am I barring her from something?
Yes.
I don't know. She's the only one I can really talk to about this, and I hadn't thought I was in any way, but I tell her everything, all my dreams and all this kind of thing. And I thought maybe she was just having this dream because I had told her a lot about what I'm dreaming about. But I'm trying to get over this fearful part, because I would like to be one of the ladies that nurtures these babies on his ships. And I am still too fearful. I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm still afraid.
Well, again, when you feel that fear, feel it. Really conjure it up. Imbue it. Allow it to play out. Then ask yourself, what do I believe? When you ask yourself that now, what do you get?
That I'm not worth it. I mean, that I'm not worthwhile, that I don't deserve it, that I'm not good enough to do this.
All right. That is one choice or viewpoint within you. What is the opposite, perhaps preferred viewpoint?
That I am good enough and I can do whatever I want.
Which do you prefer?
Obviously the other one.
All right. Do you see the difference in action from the two different presentations of you?
Yes.
Therefore, you have, again, through the referential preferential you, the template of actions to perform. Simply, where and when applicable, do these things, and you will attract yourself in no uncertain terms into an interaction at your own pace, at your own timing.
Can I ask just one more quick question?
You can ask.
A couple of weeks ago, just before waking up, I was very excited. In my dream, I finally got my husband to look up at the sky, and I saw Are there ever any space people in silver uniforms?
Perhaps you would interpret it that way.
Well, I saw two big, long, cigar-shaped, they were huge. I mean, that might have covered 2 or 3 miles. Two long cylindrical things that were crossed right in the middle. And on the end of each one, there was a round pod. And then over the whole top of it, there was a cap that was completely round. Is that a...
That would, in a sense, be representative of a style of mothercraft, which generally you would not see from your ground. But in this case, that applies.
Would yours look like that? Your mother craft?
In this instance, it was not our craft you were perceiving. Our craft is similar, though perhaps more log-like, with flat ends in that sense.
And are the Essassani people a race that has come from a mixture of the Zetas and the Earth people?
Ace.
That's what I thought. Okay.
And we thank you.
Thank you.
For though you may often perceive that we have much to offer you, you now may understand in no uncertain terms that you have as much or more to offer us. And we are literally your children, calling back through the ages to thank you and at the same time perhaps nurture the relationship between the two races that then results in our own creation.
Do I have a future life on your planet?
You tell me.
I hope so.
Well, when you know so, then you will.
Thank you.
When you hope so, you are in a sense saying you doubt that you do. Be aware of this and be conscious. Make the decision. That is all it takes.
Thank you very much.
And to you.
Elan,
Ace.
thank you. I have something that I want to share with you and ask you a few questions.
All right.
Okay. 6 days ago, so I was sitting in a room 6 days ago with my friend Emily, and we both went into an expanded meditative state. I had my eyes open, as did she, and we could see our light bodies. And then all of a sudden the room went brilliant white, and we were visited by beings who then asked me if I would be willing to beam up. And they said that it would be sort of like what I had seen on Star Trek. And I was not afraid at all, so I allowed that to happen. And I went into a craft that was not unlike yours. And
Describe.
I only know that I went right into a chamber. I didn't see going into the craft at all. But what I did see when I got in there were the exact same balls of light that I had seen the last time that I saw you. The balls of light in containers, the children were there, and there was a larger ball of light. I was instructed that I had a lot of experience in teaching the children with these balls of light, that the balls of light contained a hologram of information, and that they learned morphogenetically in exchange with the balls, and that I was their teacher. And there was a larger ball, there were larger balls. They asked me to choose one. I chose one.
Did you hold it in your hands?
I held it in my hands.
Did something emerge from it?
Well, it became more alive and vibrant, and they asked me to hold it to my third eye and told me that I would understand what this meant. I understood that to mean that it was that holding this to my third eye was reactivating the memory of using these balls.
To some degree. It is in that sense part and parcel of your experience now to remain grounded and focused, to not remember many things about it. But there will be some, shall we say, openings and awakenings. Do proceed.
So then, after I held this larger ball to my third eye, I was congratulated on the choice that I had made. I put it back in its container and began to play with the children, throwing the balls back and forth, just engaging them in play. The balls were very vibrant and alive with color, spheres of color. And information was being transmitted through the touch for the children. Then there was a period of time where I was sitting in the center and they were sitting in a semicircle around me, and I was assisting them in integrating the information that had been transmitted through the play.
Nice.
Integrating. I helped them to integrate and assimilate by placing my hands on their third eye. Then we telepathically discussed any questions about the information, and there was assimilation. Then I went from there to a circle of light, which seemed like on another planet, on a planet, not the Earth.
Well, before you proceed, allow us to remind you about two particular applications of the liquid light ball technology. First of all, by allowing the ball to hover in the middle of a congregated group of people, can be 3 people or more in that sense. You may, in that sense, by suggesting that individuals project their intentions and desires onto the substance of the liquid light ball, find that the ball will take on, so to speak, a life of its own. That will set up a template within the framework of the substance of the liquid light that will enable, all right, perhaps colloquially speaking, the inhabitation of that, shall we say, body by a discrete consciousness, which can then be interacted with directly through the ball. Does that make sense? Secondly, by holding the chosen ball within your hands, focusing with perhaps your third eye, but also with your other 2 open, your intention upon the ball, you will find, and this applies to anyone who finds themselves so excited, so inclined in that sense, that a particular image or perhaps object or perhaps symbol will emerge from the substance of the ball. Pay particular attention to what that presentation is, what emerges from that ball, and perhaps in a future interaction, we will expand upon this. Do proceed to the circle of light.
Okay, so I was, after being in this learning chamber with the children, I was reminded of the circle, and that I was instructed to take my place in the circle. And then suddenly I was on what appeared to be a planet, not Earth, in a circle. There were beings in a circle. I was one of them. My friend Kim was there. And we were all in complete harmony.
Nice.
And unconditional love. And in the center of the circle was a large sphere of light. And there was a lot of programming in that sphere, that ball of light.
In a sense, projected energy. Do proceed.
Okay. What I saw were beams coming from each person to the ball, or from the ball to each person. I couldn't differentiate, but I was given a lot of sort of a historical rundown of my place there. It felt as though I was there and I'm here.
This, in a sense, will refer back to something that did occur and may or may not present itself as a memory, but in this discrete lifetime as a child.
I don't understand that.
You will. And it is purposeful that I am vague and perhaps a bit mysterious, so that, again, ideas will stir within you that will then identify more strongly what I am saying. But understand that you have been, as a child, part of that circle. There is a connection to our society, but there is also a connection to the society aforementioned, labeled for now reticulum as well, in that circle.
I was told then that I'm only partly human.
Well, perhaps essence-wise, for now you may understand and settle into that your body would be completely human. That goes for all of you, by the way.
Well, I think what was being conveyed to me was that that there was information there that I was...
You have connections that now are becoming relevant to your present exploration in this life. Therefore, you are now recognizing those connections and creating new connections as well.
There were also tall people at this circle, tall white people. They call themselves the tall ones. I've seen this face once or twice. I'm not clear on how this all works. All I know is I was in this circle and I was being told of sort of the vision that we had sitting in that circle to bring to Earth. And the ball suddenly became what looked like the Earth in its beginning formation. And we were sending our intention.
The tall ones, the shining ones in that sense, would correspond to a particular gate that many of you, not all, but in being born have passed through, that we sometimes refer to as the Arcturus gate. That would be the representation of that stream of consciousness, though understand they are not embodied as you in that sense understand embodied, would in that sense be far more of an energy form. But many times the only way you will allow yourself to interpret them as intelligence will be the ascribing of a body. There is another connection there as well. Since that connection will represent forgetting less, you will begin to understand that the presentation of them in that situation will represent what you will find to be the unfoldment of memory, which also includes that circle as a child. Are you at least clear with the symbols we are sharing?
I'm going to have to listen to the tape.
All right, but if there is a question, go a step further and ask. You are living the tape right now.
The tall are the tall ones guiding me?
In a sense, they are again a presentation representative of the Arcturus energy.
Arcturus is a race?
Is a gate, is a consciousness through which many of you pass in being born as of late, that has the resulting, shall we say, factor of forgetting less and beginning to remember who you are.
They talked at great length with me about remembering who I am.
Oh, what a coincidence.
Yeah. And I mean, it's for about 3 hours. And then the person that had first come to communicate with me started to share with me again, the person from the craft. And he, she, whatever, told me that they were a race of people that served the Creator and had for millennia.
Well, in a sense, you all are.
Okay.
They recognize it and present themselves boldly from that perspective. You can as well.
Okay. This particular individual said that they were more of a computer bank of information than a male or female. And that they said that I could refer to it, whatever, as engineer, and that they were going to step up my energy.
All right, but do understand that this not only need mean technological engineer, and is as well a sociological engineer, so to speak.
Oh, okay. And it indicated that the stepping up of my energy streams may cause me some difficulty, and that I could call to the engineer if I was having physical difficulties.
Nice. But you can also take a deep breath, relax, and allow. For the difficulty, as you are wording it, is the resistance to the change rather than the allowance of it. So if you are in the allowance mode, you will never feel or experience what you would consider to be difficulty. If you do, simply slow down, take a breath, perhaps invoke that referential preferential you, and proceed in centered, purposeful intention action.
The last part of this, they started to talk to me about my dream for my life here, my vision of my farm, and my school on my farm, and I immediately went there and found myself playing in a school I had built with children with these balls of light, and understood that there are ways of learning much more enjoyable than we are currently utilizing.
Nice.
And that it was at least inferred that I would be part of bringing that here.
Then perhaps you can take comfort in the fact that you are becoming that you right now.
Who was the engineer? What race of people was that?
For now, it will represent an ancient race that, in that sense, was, shall we say, in contact with your civilization early on, tens of thousands of your years ago, that has not in that form been in contact since. And there may be, now that you are awakening as a civilization, more interaction with this stream, but for now we refrain from a label. We have not discussed them before, and perhaps you will receive new insight into them for furthering these discussions down the line.
Well, I just want to thank you for taking the time with me. I really wanted to just affirm this for myself in front of a group of people and take the risk of believing what I know.
Well, I thank you for doing the affirming, for you have done it all, and have perhaps allowed me to enjoy participating with you. I thank you for that. My unconditional love to you. Sheddings.
Elan.
Yes.
Well, I want to ask about, I had my little adventure into this chamber that I've been exploring.
And what did you discover? Within yourself, from the depths, the chambers, and the resonances within you.
Worms.
Worms.
All right.
An Indiana Jones movie. No, it was really a beautiful experience. I went there impulsively. It was at night. I slept there in a boat in the water in this cave in the middle of nowhere. It felt like a dream to me, and what I experienced was it's hard to explain except that I came out with the words telephone work number, and that's really was on my mind all the time. I wanted to ask you about that. And I also had some pretty intense dreams when I went home after that.
Describe.
Well, in essence, I was at the cave, at the entrance of the cave again in my dream, and there was some person there or being of some sort, and we had gone back into the cave, and they were showing me these. They look like aquariums in rock, in the side of the rock, of the sides of the cave, walls of the cave, but they weren't aquariums. There was some sort of fluid or electronic something or information there.
In a sense, you may understand that in many ways these chambers will represent gateways or doorways. And in that sense, you are not peering through the rock, but into an entirely different reality altogether, and sampling, perhaps you can say, some of the life from that reality. That was perhaps what you would sometimes colloquially call a guide consciousness, assisting you now that you were willing to take the physical steps to the real journey within. Now, I will ask you how this relates to your telephone and your work.
No, I've been thinking about it for a long time now.
Are you, shall we say, satisfied with the work that you do? Or is there something else that would perhaps be more representative of who you are? And are you picking up the phone of yourself, calling yourself to tell you what it is?
Yeah, that's what I get all the time, but it's about fear. I'm still not quite taking that extra step to really be the preference, the true self.
Then at least enjoy the fear as much as you can. But again, it is just simply a matter of taking that step, which you again will, in that sense, perhaps create some of the fear, but then step through the fear rather than leave it static and do nothing. If you're going to be fearful either way, you might as well get moving. Then the fear will, in that sense, begin to make more sense, serve you, deliver its message, and move on.
I mean, the cave was serving me, and I got a lot of echoes. I was making some whistle noises and experimenting with different sounds. And minutes would pass, like 10 minutes later, I would hear the echo coming from the rock. And it scared me a little bit, but then I thought, well, just open your doors, Jim, let it flow and let it come in.
It was not a literal, shall we say, echo. It was an interdimensional echo, hence the lag time. You will find many such unusual occurrences in that way, perhaps also with light.
Well, I did that. I had a candle with me, and I put the candle in that section of the rock before this happened. So I was definitely drawn to a certain section of the rock. And it was a great experience. That's a lot of fun.
So are you telling me when you finally moved and did something, you had a good time? Perhaps you can use that as a model.
Okay.
And perhaps along the way there will be a few worms, but wormholes many times will bridge areas that took a long time to get to.
Well, it's a great experience. I had a good time doing it. I'm not sure if it's still there. I haven't checked on it lately.
It is, and can be, shall we say, accessed at any time. Again, the chambers correspond to a, perhaps colloquially speaking, portion within yourself. And by physically visiting that area, you have set up a resonance between the chamber and the inner, so to speak, chamber. Therefore, if you wish to go there again, please do. And many, shall we say, more unusual things may occur. But you now have a direct telephone line. And perhaps your new work will be derived from the inspiration of these experiences.
Is there something you could advise me on doing when I'm there?
I can advise you to get in touch with your excitement and tell me what excites you the most in this regard.
Making noises, being having some sort of a ceremony there, being, I guess, somewhat shamanistic about it, and that's what my first instinct is.
All right. Will you invite other individuals or do it alone?
I want to do it alone, but I'm also open to other individuals.
All right. Then perhaps initially you can feel it out, set up the groundwork, do it yourself,
Okay.
Create the process, find what works in that process for you. If you hit a dead end, so to speak, conjure up the referential preferential you. It will take over just finely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sherry.
Elan,
Ace.
how are you tonight?
Perfect. As you are as well.
A few nights ago, I was up late, just relaxing, and I was watching some cable. And the next thing you know, I say, wow. And all of a sudden I felt like I went out of my body. And I felt as if that molecular structure of my body was being given information, or somehow I was taking in or receiving information, but I felt very lightheaded. I felt like I was going to sort of not faint, but I guess that's the terminology I would use. And that lasted for about 3 minutes.
Now understand, from our perspective, you did have an experience you would call out of body. We again remind you, though, that your body exists within your consciousness. So even when stepping out of that particular focus, you are still within your consciousness. Therefore, you may understand that when shifting your point of view, quote unquote, from the body, you may immediately feel access to information, which is in that sense present in your, shall we say, surrounding environment, but irrelevant to the body itself.
Okay, well, what happened was I felt also I saw twinklings of light in the room at the time as well. I've been seeing a lot of that lately, particularly late at night when it's real quiet and I have some peace to just be alone. And the following day, I closed my eyes and I actually pictured the energy of my body in a seat on board a ship. And there were 3 red lights above me, and there was something going on. I wasn't quite certain what it was, but it sort of felt like I was being shown something, or I was accessing something.
Well, what did you access? What were you shown?
I was actually I was being basically, my mind was being basically, I use the term worked on, given information, I guess a higher level of information or understanding, that I would be channeling at some point this stuff from a higher level. And I'm not sure what the level is, but
The level is what you call your higher self. Direct. You need not remove, in that sense, responsibility. It is you. You are becoming, unfolding into more of yourself. Do not draw the separation, and you will accelerate the process.
what was the...
That is what many quote-unquote external seeming beings are, in a sense, here to urge you to do. To open up, to lure you into more of yourself. Not more of us, not more of them, more of you.
Well, I felt a lot of that, and I mean, I really understand that because I've been going much more bolder into myself a lot and enjoying that. But I was wondering as to that night, who I was working beyond myself, the ship I was on, the lights that I had seen, and I didn't really notice any. I thought there was one person there.
Before you proceed, allow yourself to understand that that ship was made of you. There is no external idea here. This is all you. Now begin again to cease making the separation and open up into that you. And then if there are separate, shall we say, occurrences, they will simply become obvious.
So I basically created that.
Oh, yes, entirely. Yes. That is the degree of your power. And the degree of, shall we say, injecting your interested focus as a symbol that you can use.
Another question, actually, dealing with physical body. I used to have what I considered, dermatology problems in my back a little bit. Not real lot, But now, ever since I came back from being in Florida a while back, I noticed a transformation in my back that it's clear.
Nice. Well, you have since that point, and perhaps just prior, been willing to express without any doubt, without any hesitation, to whoever is present, who you are. Therefore, there is no need for the building up and successive releasing from your physical body of these symbols. You are doing just fine.
And that's really about it for now, I think.
Then we thank you. Before we break, over there, female.
Oh. Hi, Elan.
Greetings.
I was very calm, and then when I was getting ready to show, I don't know, I guess I could interpret it as excitement if I wish rather than nervousness. And I'm going to be studying with somebody for 10 days, and
Someone representing whom?
he's a teacher, a healer. He's actually an enlightened, ascended master in physical form. And I'm going to be studying there with him, and
Well, again, welcome to the moment. Allow whatever comes up to be perfect and proceed. On some level, your question has been already answered, so proceed to the next question.
Okay, we were speaking about me starting my own healing school. And I've been given guidance through my own higher self and through another person who channels that is to be very soon. And I have a feeling that the connection of me going to Sedona for 10 days studying with this person is going to be the last, quote unquote, outer teacher in physical form that I'm to have.
In a sense, there will be, shall we say, feedback from your external reality, but perhaps not as much of a reliance upon it and simply the accepting of it in its timing as perfect.
I feel excitement about this, and then I feel some fear about this.
What are you afraid of?
I'm afraid that I don't really know anything to teach.
All right. Well, now understanding that even within your particular circumstance is perhaps inapplicable.
I know.
What else might you fear?
I'm afraid that when I channel, like channeling Aliota, the Essassani, I've done it a few times with people, and this is related. I'm afraid people are going to ask me questions that I'm not going to know.
You are not doing the answering. Therefore, simply allow the information through. What I can guarantee you from our end is it will be forthcoming. But that is as much as I can guarantee.
What if they ask me technical questions?
Then allow, to whatever degree the answers come, to be phrased in whatever words are available.
Because I don't have a technical background.
Ace, but very often an entity communicating, quote unquote, through you in such a way will simply ask for certain terminology, ask for certain, shall we say, guidelines to be able to then render the answer in the language that you do have. But allow that interchange.
When you said forthcoming, what do you mean? I'll be channeling it forthcoming.
The information will be provided from our end. That is the guarantee that I give. What you do with it is up to you.
So that this is just related to, I've been connecting more and more with Aliota, and it seems that Kativa, the name that I had for my future self, and Aliota are one and the same as...
Ace. One will represent the child spirit. One will represent the adult.
Right, and that's what I've got. And, okay, I think I don't need to ask.
Perhaps I can give a small suggestion. Allow yourself to attract questions that you do not know the answer to, and watch what happens. That is what will enable you to, shall we say, develop the confidence that you seek.
Right.
You are assuming nothing will come. I am telling you absolutely something will. Therefore, now you can see what you will do with it. Is that all for now?
Can I ask one more thing?
One moment. Proceed.
Is what I'm teaching in my healing school, and what I keep getting a vision of, is related to the message that the information that you talk about us being totally responsible for ourselves and healing ourselves. That seems to be what I'm going to teach people.
Nice.
Is that they heal themselves, and that when I work with people, I just go to their soul and talk to their soul and mirror back to their soul, so that dis-ease in the body can miraculously, so to speak, disappear.
This is the greatest service that you can render, and by the reminding of who has done the healing, the final icing on the cake of the self-empowerment.
Right.
We thank you.
Okay, that's it. I just need to...
Before we pause for a short break, a simple explanation that my scanning on whether or not to answer another question was the scanning of the individuals present who are quite desirous of a break. Therefore, at this timing, we will pause for a short break of 10 to 15 minutes of your counting. All right, I'll say, before we continue, allow me to ask you all a question. When you did, in that sense, conjure up the referential, preferential you, right there before you, standing in glistening splendor in your imagination, did you like what you saw? Yes. Is there anyone who did not? Oh, thank you. Understand that you are already that you, and your willingness to proceed as that you is all that it, so to speak, requires to continue to create yourself as that you. Colloquially speaking, in a reality where you create time, linear time, you are always, in each given moment, so to speak, recreating who you are. Very often, plugged into that equation is a particular expectation of, shall we say, a non-preferential you. And therefore, you recreate that you reestablish that you re-be that you. Now you can do the very same thing with the preferential you. And the fact that you did, in that sense, like what you see, and like what you did see, is a representation that you truly do within yourself. Love yourself and have the capacity to unconditionally love yourself. What you saw was not unobtainable. What you saw is the reality in the consistent recreation of who you are that you now choose to be, by simply referring to it where necessary and simply automatically performing the actions of that self when possible. You will perpetuate the recreation of that preferred you. Again, much in the same way that you had perpetuated the unpreferred you for this long. It is not a matter of learning anything new. Simply reapplying according to preference what you already are experts at. We thank you. Sharing. Female.
Could you use that referential preferential treatment for people who have addictions? For instance,
Absolutely. And no, for instance, is actually necessary. It works across the board. When an individual is about to partake of what you call an addiction, he can or she can, in that sense, simply before doing it, call up the referential preferential self. Hand over the referential to the referential preferential self, the particular circumstance. See what that you does to, in a sense, fulfill and satisfy, but through integration and through purposefulness and through desire of who they desire to be. For, shall we say, deep down inside, it is our perception that most, if not all, individuals truly desire to be self-empowered, truly desire to rely on themselves. So by invoking that referential preferential self, they are, in a sense, empowering that already empowered perspective and will come up with a differing set of actions that can be quite satisfying.
how about when the child is very young, though? I'm thinking of babies. They have pictures of babies in the womb before they're born, sucking their thumbs. And I have 2 granddaughters that have had tremendous teeth problems because of this. And they're still very young and have had the teeth problems corrected, but still have that urge to suck the thumb. So how could I apply that for something like that?
Well, you can do it in much the way that we have shared. They understand to some degree the ability to use the imagination, perhaps sometimes more vividly than even yourselves. But also in that sense, perhaps you can also inquire as to, again, what they get out of it, what it allows them to do, and then perhaps provide other methods by which such a thing can be achieved without the same quote-unquote side effects. But the referential preferential you will work in that instance if they use it.
Would this work for people who are homosexual, who are having a hard time with their polarity of their sexuality?
Well, it depends on which way you mean. It is not our perception that there is absolutely anything inherently wrong with that.
With the homosexual problem, not problem, but
Situation of exploration. It is one of the options in this reality.
thank you.
And to you.
Elan.
Ice.
Hello, Elan.
Greetings.
Ha'atu.
Ha'atu.
Are you on your scoutcraft?
Ice.
Is Bashar there?
No.
Would you say hello to Bashar for me?
Ice.
Is Anya there?
Ice.
Say hello to Anya.
Greetings returned.
I was thinking this morning when I was reading a transcript about time that what I understand from the transcript is that time is a man-made creation that we use to...
Well, also woman-made.
What? Human-made
Oh.
creation that we use to separate ourselves from all it is.
Well, in a sense, but again, it is also a means by which experience can be, in a sense, accumulated in a reality that contains such an idea. And again, with the creation of the space within a physical reality, the time in that sense to explore and discover within it. Do proceed.
Well, I got the impression that it separated us from all that it is because it didn't allow us this understanding of time.
Well, one moment. It has not separated you from all that
right,
is.
right.
You have chosen to experience this style of separation. That is the medium through which you express it.
Right. Because it doesn't allow us to understand ourselves to be everywhere and every when all at once.
Well, understand that although you are everywhere and every when all at once, you are also discrete individuals separate from the rest at the same time. The paradox is that both are equally valid. Both are expressions of creation itself. And there is nothing better about the integrated state than what you might sometimes refer to as the disintegrated state. They are equal statements, equal realities.
Well, my question was that this also includes that we're everyone. And this I have a lot of trouble with. I can't.
Well, that is why, in general, you will attract the terminology oversoul and still, to some degree, break it down in that way. But if you understand the oversoul of the oversoul of the oversoul and continue to, so to speak, trace it back, you will find all that is to be the ultimate one oversoul.
Yes.
So ultimately, that is true.
That I understand, but that we each include everyone. It's very hard to comprehend.
Why?
It just is.
Perhaps again, from the perspective of separation, the concept of all that is a bit overwhelming in and of itself. But understanding that all that is perhaps, again, colloquially speaking, your ultimate oversoul, and that this applies to everyone else. You are literally emanating from one source, and henceforth have a singular connection. All is literally one. Now that one event, so to speak, is being expressed in the multiplicity of occurrences that you consider to be life. But ultimately speaking, you will understand experientially the oneness and the simultaneity, but not at any pace that is too soon. Only as you, in a sense, choose to discover more of the simultaneous presentation of your being, will you then be, so to speak, spoon-fed more and more. So you need not experience anything until you are ready and requesting it.
That helped a lot. I saw something I haven't seen before.
Well, thank you.
I have one other question. I saw a TV show about Alcatraz, and they had a psychic go and visit what used to be Alcatraz, and he sensed about 100 entities there that he felt were past prisoners.
In a sense, perhaps you can say, again, colloquially speaking, the footprint of the extreme emotionality of that particular statement of their lives. Not so much entities hanging around with nothing better to do.
That was my question. What was the phenomenon taking place? It wasn't the actual entities, it was...
Well, they can be invoked where and when possible. But it is, again, because of the negative assignment of the situation, so to speak, charged in a way that would appear to leave a footprint, so to speak.
And that's what he was sensing.
Yes. And individuals sensitive to that can tap into it. Others may absolutely find nothing. But for, again, your assurance, no one is hanging around.
Thank you very much.
And to you. Sure.
Elan.
Back there, male.
Elan. Yes.
One moment.
Oh.
Elan?
Ace.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No need to apologize.
Your meditation felt very grounding, and it seemed to.
Oh, thank you. Then I have done my job.
Yes. It seemed to shift the energy in the room here, and the sense of my field of the cohesiveness of us as a group.
By the way, anytime you are willing to simply in any endeavor, with any individuals present, particularly if there is a common goal, to breathe in that way together, you will achieve that same feeling. Co-spiring.
Very, very rich. I just want to discuss for a moment this experience I've had with the thing of allowing.
All
I've been experimenting with in this past few months.
All right, then I will allow you to speak.
Well, just that I have found it to be a very fruitful expression of my learning to allow more fully my life to be as it is, to allow the people around me to be as they are, to allow the feelings that come up from time to time within me to be as they are, without trying to push or change or force it to be something other than it is. And this idea I've gleaned from being here, but I've just found it very, very useful.
Well, perhaps in the conjuring up of your referential preferential you, there was little difference between that you and the you consider yourself to be. You are already doing it.
Actually, there wasn't any difference in my in my conjuring up of that image.
That makes it no less useful, but thank you.
You know, it's very useful to me. And there was some difference of feel inside of me as I sat within this being and then grounded myself back to this room. I could feel something more powerfully grounded within me as a definite option.
You are allowing the expression of more of yourself through the same vessel.
I had a dream which was somewhat interesting to me, and I'm not quite sure. I had a dream where I was viewing a case. It was full of ants, and I was just watching them, and suddenly I felt these things biting on my fingertips, and I was somewhat alarmed, and the person next to me said, "Oh, that's Shiva." And I said, "What?" And anyway, I ran out of the room, and I ran to get in the shower, and these ants were like chasing me down the street.
Well, in a sense, understanding that they represent what lies underneath the surface, you cannot escape it. Do proceed.
So might I interpret that as that the things that I've been hiding under the surface of me are coming quite to the surface?
Ice, and if perhaps you inquire from them, my dear child, what would you like that I perhaps can give you other than my fingertip? You will then find something will be forthcoming. And what in that sense is presented to you will be an aspect of yourself that perhaps you have not faced, presenting itself. Perhaps an aspect that in the past you would have labeled, all right, awful. But you will understand that once it presents itself, it is not so awful. And in effect, is requiring your attention and love to integrate it. The ignorance of it is, in that sense, what allows it to become louder and perhaps have a bite.
So I'm going to get to practice my allowance.
Ace, and perhaps next time, bring some honey. They will, in that sense, appreciate it far more than the fingertip.
Thank you very much.
And to you.
Elan.
Ace.
Greetings.
And to you.
Could you compare the law of attraction to the universal law that what we put out is what we get back?
In a sense, they are identical. And also can be expressed as the statement that we have shared, that you can only experience a reality that you are the vibration of. And in the establishment of the referential preferential you, you decide consciously what you wish your vibration to be. Provide it to yourself, project it to yourself in your imagination, and your willingness to assume those actions is the assumption of that vibration, thereby changing what you will attract. And this will be immediately obvious to anyone who is willing to participate in action with what we are sharing.
Then, given this law of attraction, it would seem to me, for example, in dealing with other humans, and let's be specific here, that if I find that I'm very attracted to another female, that I can assume, well, likes attract likes, and therefore that feeling will probably be returned.
Well, in a sense, you are reading, shall we say, many things into a situation. Perhaps you can say, if you are attracted to someone, that interacting with them and allowing yourself in whatever way is available to glean some interaction may be the point of the attraction altogether, and need not then assume and be responsible for how they feel and what is attractive to them. Utilize the attraction in the form of, well, obviously there is something to explore here, and you need not in that sense extend it beyond that. When you are willing to consciously go forth and explore it, then either what you are saying will be obviously so, or you will derive something else which will then fulfill why you were attracted in the first place. When you begin to set up an expectation scenario, very often you will set up the disappointment as well, for you have assumed you know the exact reason for the attraction, which then in a sense gives you tunnel vision and does not allow you to remain open to see why you are actually attracted.
So as Mark might say, allow it to unfold.
Ace. But at the same time, understand that what you are attracting is a reflection and an opportunity to explore, not the one person who will make you complete, which assumes you are not.
Well, maybe you can have the reverse problem that you have too many people to deal with.
Well, all right. If you wish to call it a problem, then perhaps you will get that effect. If you wish to understand it as a situation, you can revel in that as well.
Opportunity.
Ace.
Thank you very much.
And to you.
Elan,
Ace.
so guess what?
I give up.
My birthday's coming up.
Well, happy birthday.
Can you guess what day it is?
Well, first of all, today. For you have, in that sense, recreated yourself anew. And perhaps happy birthday would apply to you all. However, in terms of your physical birth, do proceed.
November 2nd.
All right. Then you have, as the phoenix, risen.
So, can you elaborate on why I chose this day to incarnate?
Well, in a sense, as a reminder, as a constant reminder that you are eternal, that you are anew, that you have, in a sense, explored ad infinitum, so to speak, the negative perspective. And now you are providing the positive alternative. Can be as simple as that.
So, now I'm tuning into the choice, sort of the conscious choice I've given myself to experience the phoenix.
Yes. And to experience the positive preferred outcome. Having the life that you prefer, but not needing to feel that that need be at the cost of someone else or yourself. Full circle.
Can we briefly discuss this this rattle that you...
If in that sense you have, shall we say, explored it and expanded on your particular point of view and will share that with me, there may be the opportunity to do so. If you are at basically the same place, no.
I feel kind of sort of living in a paradox. So it's kind of interdimensional, my sense about what's happening to me. And
do you feel things, so to speak, shaking loose within you?
yeah, well, because I'm getting the answer that I can't get an answer. That my definition of things about myself aren't existing anymore, and that I just have to accept that because...
Well, the idea is that you get to create from this point forward. And in the creation of yourself anew according to preference, from this point forward, there may be certain connections to what you would call the past. But rather than searching them out, simply allow them to come up, for when they are coming up is relevant to what you are then at that time exploring. You will not be able to, so to speak, force that hand, but simply, again, through allowance and trust in timing, will find many connections that perhaps you are now perceiving from the perspective of attempting to get them to be lost. They are not lost.
So
they are simply irrelevant to this moment.
Right. So in time, I will have maybe a perspective again, but it's not really relevant whether I have one or not, right?
Well, in a sense, when you consciously choose to be the you now prefer to be, you will touch into that from the perspective of having resolved it. Does that make sense?
Yes, because I do fluctuate in and out of anger.
All right.
To rage even.
Well, anger is simply alignment and lasts 10 to 15 of your seconds. I suggest to you that beyond that 15-second mark, you are strongly into invalidation and judgment about what you have just aligned yourself about.
Right.
So simply find where you are judging. Understand that judging is the assignment of unequal value. Remind yourself that everything is equal. Be willing to validate the things you do not prefer, for that is what frees you up from them to begin with and allows you to release them. The judgment holds them firmly at your attention in place.
And free which again? You lost me. What am I going to free? My value judgment?
When you, in a sense, judge anything out of anger by invalidating it,
Right.
you hold it in place and empower it and place attention upon it.
Right.
When you say, all right, this is not representative of who I am, but I grant it the right and reason to exist perhaps for someone else, you release it. You release your attention from it. You release its effect on you. Judging something does not render it less and put it aside. It gives it more weight and brings it to the forefront. So allow yourself to use the anger. The anger is telling you, this is me. This is not. If you stop at that point, you are strongly defined in any given moment. You are defining who you are. If you proceed to say that the thing that is not me stinks and has no reason to be there, you are judging and invalidating it, and that is where the rage, shall we say, is experienced as rage. But you also ironically hold that very thing you judge in place. If you simply make the assignment that this is representative of who I am, this is not, therefore I will choose what is representative of my own intention and purpose, but not invalidate the thing that is not, simply not place attention upon it, you release it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you willing now to use your anger to align and then move on?
Yeah.
Watch now how your experience of it will change when you remind yourself. And perhaps one of the reasons your society has coined the terminology count to 10 is that that does give you a referential time frame.
My sense is that I'll see connections, in increasing depth in my own process if I release the anger.
For that invalidation, again, keeps things that you do not prefer in the front, which then, so to speak, obscures your view.
Okay, briefly on a different topic,
All right, but is that clear? And is it useful?
It is clear. It helps to have your validation about it.
Oh, all right. But when you hear what you perceive to be my validation, you ultimately are still doing the validating. So thank you.
It's a big process.
All right. Can be whatever size you assign. Can be no process at all.
It's so filled with irony and paradox.
Well, that's part of the fun.
It's so
keeps things interesting, not boring.
And it sort of mirrors a pattern in my life, but it's not totally externalizing itself anymore. So in other words, the experience wasn't like bodily or real in a sense. It was more like a stage where I could almost manipulate the actors.
And is now simply not relevant to who you are. Still exists within you. There's nowhere to put anything. All your outdated ideas still exist within you, for there is no outside to place them in. However, as you choose to act according to the things that you prefer, you, in a sense, distance yourself from these things that you do not prefer being relevant to you, and will not experience them any longer. Simply be aware of them as a concept. And again, perhaps many times see them in others.
See these qualities I am releasing in others.
For again, you will always be more aware as you expand of both positive and negative. The question is, what do you wish to experience? Your willingness to choose from the positive perspective and act will only yield positive experience. Though because you are in a reality of polarity, you will still be aware of the negativity. And again, many times, it will be in the form of someone else and their story.
So I don't have to experience. I mean, I realize that it all comes down to one word, that's perception. That's like the key word of this whole incredible trip.
Quite credible, by the way. And perhaps another synonym would be point of view. Yes.
Yeah. It's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
All right.
Okay.
You seem to like that.
I've been aware of this light outside my window. Am I experiencing another craft?
Not necessarily.
Is that a yes or a no? I mean,
That is neither.
I'm afraid of that.
Oh,
Okay.
you always get what you fear.
So is it a star?
It is, for the purposes of explanation, a recognition within you.
Of what?
You tell me. Now that I have phrased it in that perspective, plug it in. Be active and tell me. What lights are going off within you?
Oh, choice, perception.
All right. Then that will do. Choice itself, which implies you always have another option.
My daughter has been talking about, and she's only 4, going on the spaceships in her dreams. Is she having
A more blatant type of interaction, yes. In terms of the specifics, she will tell you.
and can you tell me with who?
No. That would, in a sense, interfere at this point. It would narrow your focus rather than leaving it broad.
But is she safe?
Yes, absolutely.
So I don't need to worry.
Well, that's up to you.
Pack her toothbrush or anything.
'Tis up to you. Whether you will worry or not will always be up to you.
Will she always come back?
Yes. Her choice is to be here as well.
Is she teaching or being taught?
Both. And that is always the case. As you, in a sense, feel you are learning right now, you are teaching many others at the same time.
I had 2 experiences, and I'll be brief about both of them, that have come into my consciousness tonight strongly, so there must be a relevance, and I want to relate them to you.
Number 1.
They both happened long ago. One was 15 years ago when I lived in Hawaii, and I was sitting on a beach with somebody I had just met. A very strong light went on. It was dark, it was nighttime, and we were encircled for about 10 or 15 seconds in a spotlight that went on and then went off, and there was absolutely nothing when we looked up in the sky.
What you were perceiving from our perspective is what you would call experimental governmental craft.
It wasn't extraterrestrial?
Not in that case.
No kidding. It seemed to be just 10 feet over our head, though.
Not really.
Wow, so it was the CIA.
Distance and speed become quite arbitrary to judge in these cases.
Did they mean to involve us?
Well, perhaps from their end, not you specifically.
Was it sort of a helicopter type of craft, or? I mean, we heard no noise. We saw nothing above us.
All that we are aware of, we have shared.
Elan?
Yes, female, then male.
I hear all these things about seeing lights and spacecrafts and all those things.
You are not alone.
Are there any other kinds of contacts being made, just telepathic contact?
There are many different styles of contact. Many of them are, as this would appear, telepathic in nature, but some of them are also blatantly physical.
No, I was talking about something directly mind to mind.
Well, as we had said at first, there is much telepathic communication between many civilizations and your own.
Am I in contact with?
Yes. In a sense, I wonder why you are asking me, for you already know that to be so.
I don't know exactly who it is.
Well, ask. That is the point of having a direct line. If you are willing to, what you may sometimes perceive as, go out on a limb and ask, you will get the answer. It is your direct connection.
For some reason, I don't get any answers.
All right. Keep asking. Be persistent. I assume the referential preferential you would not stand for anything less than getting the answer.
Is it matter of the time not being right?
Yes. But that does not mean in any way that if you feel the urge to ask, that may then not be the timing. It may be.
Okay, I think what I really want to know is, am I talking to myself, or is this being somebody else?
The being, as you are describing, is someone else, but speaks to you through you. So in another sense, you can say you're talking to yourself. It is both. The channel before you, in that sense, is involved in these interactions. So in one sense of the term, you can say he is speaking to himself, or his self is speaking to you. But in another sense, from my perspective, I am a discrete individual. I have a body, I have a life. As I have said, I have a craft, a spacecraft. So from my perspective, you are speaking to another individual, but through the model of the energy of this individual before you. So you cannot really remove him from the process. It is both. Does that make sense?
Yes. Would you be able to tell me more about this being?
What do you already know?
I don't know if it's a being from some other planet, or just spirit guide, or
Why would you think that it is a being from another planet?
because it's definitely different from me, separate from me. It's not me, for sure.
All right. You have answered your first question. It is a discrete another or other being. Now, you cannot remove yourself from the process, for it is coming through you. But it is another being in that sense. You are fully aware of this. Simply validate, trust what you feel. That is what opens up the lines of communication, the trust. If, for instance, someone is speaking to you and you do not trust what they are saying, perhaps they will eventually get discouraged and go away. If someone is speaking to you and you trust what they are saying and use it and move through and with the information that comes, then that compels the individual to then deliver more information. So are you willing to now begin to trust what you are feeling and understand that you deserve this and go forth?
For some reason, I feel like I just had to wait. And
That is the timing aspect, and that is how you will know. If you feel a hesitation, then simply move forth with what is available in your life. Check in once in a while, and things will simply be obvious. Allow them to be as obvious as possible. You need not complicate the matter. It is quite simple.
I have totally different. The way you join your hands when you greet, that symbolizes honoring the other being where I grew up. Does it have any other significance in your society, or is this something you do because we all are used to it?
It is, in a sense, both. It is, in that sense, a gesture of the respect and honor as you have shared. In a sense, it is a universal greeting that does show, in that sense, that one is willing to respect and unconditionally love another being. But it is also, in a sense, perhaps can be perceived as the completion of a circuit, of the integration of what you would consider to be the positive and the negative, and functioning as a full being, not denying part or half of the reality you have chosen.
Yes, that makes sense to me. And this is about evolution. I'm trying to understand evolution. You are from our future, the way I understand it.
Well, in a sense. We are in a different time stream altogether, but were you to lie that time stream side by side with your own, it would appear that we are in the future, yes.
And you come to help us evolve to what's going to be.
Well, in a sense, I am here to assist you in celebrating what you already are. There is no insistence to become something else. And as I have shared with you in the last interaction, we are not better than you. When you asked me, can you read my mind as an enhanced ability, yes or no? I answered yes because, in a sense, yes, I can many times access your thoughts. But it is not because I am more evolved that I do so. That was why there was a hesitation in answering that question, to factor what it is you truly were seeking to hear, and in a one-word answer, which is quite, in a sense, difficult, in a sense, to render, I said yes. But it was not completely accurate in that this is not because I am more evolved or better or contain parts of my body that you do not. It is simply that I function from the perspective in my consciousness of unconditional love. And when you are willing to love someone no matter what, with no conditions, you then can begin to identify with them, identify as them, and create similar thoughts at the same time. This is more accurately what telepathy is, not literally reading someone else's mind, but becoming so identified with their vibration that the same thoughts are created at the same time. So, when you are willing to unconditionally love in that way, you will then also begin, to whatever degree, to express the same ability. And it is not a physical evolutionary ability. It is a consciousness evolutionary ability, which you already have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that clear?
Right. And to continue that question, in that case, are beings from our society also going to our past to help them to what is now?
Well, in a sense, yes. And you can do this in the arena of your imagination. Project yourself in that imagination back to what you perceive to be a past self and give them a little pat on the back. In a sense, that is what we are doing.
That makes sense. And I think we should be doing that even within our time, because they have different levels of understanding and growth, even on this one planet.
Well, go right ahead. That would be quite a positive addition of positive energy, which would then contribute to the history in a positive way. You can also do this with your own child. Go back and visit yourself as a child and encourage yourself. Please continue, go right ahead. Where you are going is quite pleasurable.
And this last question is just curiosity question, I would call it. But geographically, how big is your planet compared to ours? And is everybody at the equal level of growth on your planet?
Equal level of growth in the way that you mean, yes. In terms of the size of my planet, it is approximately 85% the size of your own, a bit smaller. But we are also located a bit farther from our sun. Hence, our year is comprised of 454 of your days.
Thank you very much.
And to you. Over there, man. Ace. And to you. Greetings.
I had a really exciting week.
All right, do share.
I decided that my car was on the way out and I traded in and get something different. Having made a deal with a certain dealership, I still had my car. I drove it to work.
By the way, with all these vehicles, you do get around.
There's one less now. Because mine burned. After I got to work, about 10 minutes later, I was notified that it was on fire.
Well, how exciting! Did you have a good time?
I laughed. I'm just wondering, why did it burn? There was no reason for it. I had it all set to go, and it just went up in smoke.
In that sense, in what way do you perceive that you are pushing yourself to your limit?
Well, it did create more of a financial burden because of the dealership.
That is not what I mean. Perhaps we can cut through much of this and simply saying that The friction that you create, which perhaps may be perceived as resulting in overheating, is a result of the resistance of following the path of your excitement.
That's when the battery blew.
That is why, in a sense, you got that charge out of it. Yes. To simply remind yourself in no uncertain terms that there is something which still excites you that you have not acted upon.
Okay. I'll have to work on that one.
Well, you can if you wish. But if you simply invoke it and begin to whatever degree you are able, act with integrity upon it, in what is available, you will simply change the momentum. And I again suggest and refer you to your referential preferential you, which I assume is driving around in the lap of luxury in perfectly functional automobiles and motorcycles. Then if you leave as that you are unlikely to recreate that scenario.
I've had enough of that one.
Ace.
All right. One other question. I've been thinking about sound. Because sound in this plane entails speed, which is time, and space. Does it in your realm also?
In a sense, yes. Within the atmosphere of our planet itself. This will be somewhat, shall we say, insignificant in what you call the vacuum of space.
Yeah, I didn't mean that. I was just wondering because...
If you were to, in that sense, visit my planet physically, you would be perceived through the sense organs of your ears in much the way you already do. Though there may be some sounds you are unaccustomed to.
I was just thinking because sound actually takes up space, or is it just...
Well, we still do, in that sense, embody and therefore, shall we say, experience many of the aspects of time and space, though our perception and creation of time is, again, at a different rate than your own.
Okay, so actually, a sound on your planet would sound different here if we could hear it at all.
Well, it may, but it would depend.
Just...
Things can also sound quite similar.
Thank you.
And to you.
Elan?
Ace.
A system of, well, let's call it a technique in chiropractic has come to my awareness. It's called network chiropractic. And it's come up to me through several sources, so I decided to make an inquiry.
All right, but before you proceed,
yes,
I will not comment. If you will ask me, what are the extraterrestrial origins of that?
I see.
Therefore, as many times, I allow another question to replace that one.
Well, being creative as I am,
and sneaky,
irregardless of its extraterrestrial origins or not, my question is: do the Essassani have healing techniques that would translate well?
Not really.
I see.
For that would imply the existence of disease to begin with, which we no longer choose to experience.
Well, I'm interested more in maintaining balance.
Well, perhaps, again, even that is a perception that there is a tendency to become off balance, which we do not contain.
So you're saying specifically that to achieve and maintain a state of balance, one really has to create that phenomenon from one's thinking and one's state of being.
Well, that is one, shall we say, perhaps once removed way to look at it. If you simply do what excites you the most in any given moment with integrity, you have established perfect balance.
I understand. So there are no techniques specifically that you'd like to channel through me?
Interesting. Not myself. There are others who are willing.
Thank you. Should I initiate this contact myself?
No shoulds. Up to you. It may speed things along.
Do you have a name reference?
No.
Thank you.
And perhaps remaining a bit less focused than that, will assist you. Do not, again, as was mentioned, remove yourself from the process.
Relative to Egypt, someone has said that I will meet two people that will facilitate part of my exploration over there. One, an older woman in a village scene, and one, a dark skinned man. Do you have any information in this regard?
No.
Okay. Relative to the Temple of Hathor, do you have any more information for me on what I might experience there and how I can facilitate that experience?
Only in terms of there is a connection that you are sensing, and there will be individuals present there that will assist you in that way.
Thank you. And is most of my work going to be centered around the Temple of Hathor, or are there other locations that are going to be instrumental in unfolding my awareness of my knowledge?
It is our perception that although there will be connections established, that you may find in the totality of the particular exploration that to be a simple footnote. There are connections that perhaps will occur more blatantly in what you call pyramids.
I have a sense that lasting, functional, dynamic relationships are going to begin on this trip, and I also have a sense that they're not all going to be terrestrial.
Perhaps it would behoove you to find out by remaining focused, however, on the terrestrial interactions.
Thank you very much. You will be attending with us.
Oh, yes. Would not miss it.
Well, look forward to sharing with you there.
All right.
Have a good evening.
And to you as well. One moment. There will be but a few moments remaining to this interaction. Ismail.
First, I'd like to thank you for your comment on life being a process that should not be boring.
Well, thank you. That is simply our approach. But it works.
I have to agree.
All right.
There are many that sense an impending major transition in our beloved planet.
It is in full swing.
Yes. A number of people have, in writings, referred to specific dates in the future as being key dates where a transition will take place. Others have referred to more of an accumulated awareness keying the transition. Those that refer to dates don't tend to agree on even particular decades. Could you comment on what exactly will trigger this transformation, and could you give us kind of a human report card as to how we're doing?
Well, first of all, again, I remind you that the transformation is already occurring, not something about to happen. The way that it is experienced will be quite individual, from individual to individual. For being that perhaps you can say your reality is a neutral statement with no built-in meaning, your assignment of meaning determines the effect you get out. You can, as we have shared, if choosing the positive perspective and only acting, only moving with that positive perspective, only experience the transformation in a positive way. If, on the other hand, you do choose to act from a negative perspective, you become of that vibration and then, shall we say, create a reality whereby you may be one of the individuals that can attract a more cataclysmic outcome. But do understand that the sensings that were interpreted and sometimes misinterpreted by many individuals were sensings of merely the change itself. Many times rendered from a time in your history where the only way any sense could be made of such change, the only way it could even be imagined that the structure could be changed, was to first tear it down. Therefore, very often, the idea of change itself is interpreted through the only framework that made sense, that being that in order to have something build up anew, something must first be smashed down. That will differ, and individuals will pick up on differing aspects of that energy depending on their own particular positive or negative orientation. What I can share, though, is that if you as an individual proceed, as we have said, in positivity, in love and light, your entire experience of the transformation will be positive. If there are individuals who still do choose to remain negatively focused, your awareness of the negative transformation will only be as having happened to someone else. And you personally will only attract yourself to an area representative of the positive outcome. So even if, for instance, your own house were to be destroyed, you simply will not be in it when it is. Now, we are not saying that it will be, but simply using that as perhaps a graphic example. By the way, you all, in our particular estimation, get an A. For no matter what you choose, positive or negative, it will be a perfect manifestation of that choice. Therefore, A+.
Is there are we, in terms of that transformation as being a process, how far along that path are we? Is that a fair question?
Any question is fair. Whether I answer it or not is another matter. But one moment. Approximately, and again, this is rather arbitrary, what you would consider to be 1/5 the way there.
Thank you. In my meditations, I've been getting a lot of reoccurrences of the name Shambala, and I have limited awareness of its applications in our history, and have had little success in finding out more information in written records. Could you comment a little on the history of Shambhala and how it relates to Lemuria and Atlantis, and why am I suddenly getting an enormous amount of energy when I meditate on this?
In a sense, for the purposes of being specific to you, that word would represent an integrated, centered form of being, period. Therefore, in particular, shall we say, areas of your history, this was demonstrated historically. However, it applies now, again, very closely to the question that you are asking, that your particular orientation and preference is to move through the transformation in a positive, centered, intentionful way.
Thank you very much.
And to you. Proceed.
Real quick, you know when we as humans, we get chills, cold chills that come over our body? What is that exactly?
Can be many things, but very often is a connection, is a recognition that you feel to the core of your being. An alignment, so to speak.
Oh, that's it. I mean, that's pretty important.
Is that not enough?
Great. I've always wondered that because it happens to me a lot.
In general, whatever you are viewing at that time is most representative of who you choose to be.
So in short, deja vu, what we call deja vu.
That is different. Though you may then have the effect you have shared after having that. But deja vu in general will represent having blueprinted a particular scenario in what you call your sleeping dream reality, which you consistently do, but in general with no awareness. And in the moment, in that sense that you do create a connection, you have, in a sense, blueprinted it before. And in that moment are simultaneously in the moment you are perceiving, but also experiencing the moment you blueprinted it. It is an expression, or one of the expressions, of the simultaneity of your being in practice, in experience. Many times that will then yield from the alignment of this, the aforementioned chills.
Thank you.
And to you. At this timing. Got it in there. Allow me to thank you all for creating within you something which, shall we say, already existed. But now you are placing attention and intention upon that referential preferential you. This is a tool that, again, you cannot lose. If you are to never attend an interaction such as this again. A gift has been bequeathed upon you that allows you to achieve the same effect. Therefore, use it when you will. It will never fail you. And again, it is quite obvious that in a given situation, two sets of actions will obviously result in two different outcomes. If you are always providing a positive alternative position, it will be most easy to choose it, for it is representative of who you prefer to be. And you will create a momentum that will allow you to continue to be this preferred you that you already are. You are that you, make no mistake about it. It is now up to you to continue to create that you, to recreate and recreate that preferred you. Whatever you choose, we will love you no less, and do unconditionally love you all, and express to you our gratitude and appreciation for your willingness to bless us with your presence, which are multidimensional, infinite, and eternal. We thank you and bid you a most fond and loving life dream and dream lives, and good evening.